Thanks for bearing with us. I will call to order the June 18th meeting of the Watertown Plan Commission. Brandy, would you do the roll call, please?
Brink.
Here.
Aletsky. Here. Culhane.
Here.
Kays.
Here.
Dargis Johnson.
Here.
Hanson. Ford.
Diana, are you with us?
She's,
Here.
Diana is here. Wonderful.
and then Dolly and Stein are absent.
Dolly and Stein are absent. With that, that brings us to item number 3 on the agenda, invitation for public comment participants submittal. If anybody would like to speak about something that is not on the agenda, we reserve a time at the end of the meeting for that. Please stick around or stay on the line, and I will open that up when that comes. Number 4, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Aletsky, second by Dargis Johnson. Brandy, roll call vote, please.
Brink.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Culhane.
Yes.
Kays.
Yep.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
With that, motion passes. Number 5, approval of the minutes from the June 4th, 2020 meeting. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Brink, second by Dargis Johnson. Brandy, roll call?
Brink.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Culhane.
Yes.
Kays.
I'm going to abstain. I wasn't there.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Motion passes. Number 6 is the commission approval of resolution number 2020-27, approving the preliminary plan for Stony Point Second Edition. Brandy.
Yes, thank you, Liam. So this is the preliminary plan for Stony Point Second Edition, lots 1 and 2. The developer and owner is Robert Drake of Stony Point Investments, LLP. And obviously, Stony Point, there's a lot of history to it. I just want to take you guys why we're here today. This is for the plat. This is a plat of Stony Point Second Edition. It's recorded and there's a development agreement attached to it. So the 2 lots that we're looking at today are lot 1 and 2. They're zoned commercial C2, which is local commercial, and that was done in 2014 as well, along with this plat. And then the development agreement that is recorded with the plat had this caveat in there that said no commercial development will be allowed without approval of a preliminary plan by the Plan Commission, which shall include adequate assurance that all required infrastructure will be provided. Now that'll be all required infrastructure, but it's specifically under streets. So that is what basically this preliminary plan is trying to accomplish. I know you guys have, this has been before the Plan Commission. This was Stony Point 3rd Edition. It is irrelevant to what we're looking at today. The rest of the land of Stony Point, it's expired too. So the rest of the land, the only thing that we're looking at today are the bluish gray lines here. The rest of the land will have to be preliminary planned at a later date when they are ready to develop those portions. They are ready to develop lot 1 and 2, but they have to meet the requirements of the development agreement by providing adequate access, which is what we're accomplishing with this. So instead, right now, I'll show you on the plat. Right now, this was just right-of-way floating, and there was no actual right-of-way or even private drives designated by the plat. So this is cleaning that up by providing a private drive that they are designing to be able to be dedicated to the public. They are looking at different options for how to go about that with financing and whatnot. For a TIF, not to make that awkward. But so now they will be accessing Prairie Hills Ave to the south, and it'll be extending through their property to provide paved access to the commercial lots where they would like to develop. As far as detention, obviously drainage is a huge deal. This is Lake Kempesca. Water quality is something that we want to preserve. and protect. So you'll see here, this is a actual jurisdictional wetland. They will not be encroaching upon that. These other two areas that you'll see here that I'm pointing out are non-jurisdictional, and I did confirm that with the Corps today. So, and they're all on board with what they're doing with their project. So they are expanding this pond that some of you will know as Dennis Arnold's for his Prairie Hills development. That will be where their 100-year detention will be conveyed. So all of the runoff will be conveyed to the south to this pond. When we, if this is approved, we'll look at the construction plans, and then we'll look deeply into. I'm going to pause. Whoever maybe is. I think I did. Now I kind of lost my train of thought. Okay, construction plans. We will look at that, how the street is designed, and to make sure, they'll submit a SWIP, the stormwater prevention
Is
pollution.
Brandy still talking?
Oh.
I can't hear her either, Todd.
Oh, maybe I muted myself. Now can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, well, you didn't miss too much. I'll repeat. So we'll still be, they'll submit construction plans for the street, and we'll look at that to see, make sure that that's all in line. They will be conveying their drainage by swales. So, and we'll make sure, erosion and sediment control is a huge concern, and we want to make sure that what we're doing with this development, if it is approved, that it will be fixing what has happened in the past, and we'll be making sure that things are done right. I know that's what everybody wants, and so staff has looked at that, and will continue to look at that when we look even deeper. We've looked at the preliminary plan; it meets our requirements, and when we look at construction plans, we'll look at that the SWIP and make sure that the best management practices are implemented correctly and maintained. So with that, that's all I got. Talked a lot.
Wonderful. Do we have anyone here? Let me see. Yep, do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of or against the preliminary plan? I believe there's a public hearing slated for this matter. I will open the public hearing.
What's the drill here?
Mr. DeBoer, would you please identify yourself?
I will. Can I touch it? Casey DeBoer, 6205 Prairie Hills Avenue. Thank you for the time this afternoon. I own a property adjacent to the properties discussed in the preliminary plan under discussion tonight. First off, I would like to say that I generally do not have issues with the lot development being proposed. However, whenever there's new commercial development that connects to long-standing single-family residential property, there are inevitably some issues. I have had the opportunity to watch the project evolve over the course of the last year right outside my windows. I was aware when I bought the property that there would be a road directly to the east of my property, and that would go north into Stony Point. What I wasn't aware of was that as soon as that property or that road got to the north end of my property, it would swing out to the west and be behind my property, and the problems that would create for me. I've shared with Mr. Drake that his excavation process has created quite a tourist attraction out at Lake Compesca, especially on the weekends. The looky-loos get a little braver, and there are usually several vehicles a day that'll drive down to check out the road and what's happening. I think they're looking to park in the marina maybe. That's not there yet. But some of the folks will even make that trip at night and in twilight. And what I've learned from that is that in the future and currently, any car that comes to the south on that road, when they come south, their headlights shine directly into the sliding glass door of my master bedroom, our other bedroom, our family room, and our living room in the backyard windows of my home. And that's a little problematic. I've shared this concern with Mr. Drake, but I felt it was important to get it on the record as a concern as this road is currently configured. It's the only road for the development, so it's going to see a significant portion of the traffic in the future as this project fully develops. I mentioned earlier, new commercial development and longstanding residential zones meet. There's often issues, and this is one of those. To me, those are usually mitigated by transitional zones or at a minimum screening and buffers that don't affect, to preserve the residential feel of a neighborhood. Mr. Drake said when we spoke, he understood why I would have concern, and that he would do what he can, and is even looking to straighten the road back out, and I thank him for that discussion. I think berms, fencing, and/or foliage to screening the existing residential properties from the impact of the road and the commercial development, as well as straightening the road, would be appropriate steps to be taken to minimize the effect of this property or this project on my peaceful enjoyment of my property. I would hope that those kind of conditions could be placed on this development as it goes forward. And then I guess maybe retreading some things that happened before I was even here. Although most of the traffic from Stony Point Trail will will be to the east of me, this commercial development does change the nature of Prairie Hills Avenue. Why would you design the only entrance to a commercial development to traverse a block and a half of a residential neighborhood? That is just poor planning on everybody's part. It will go a block and a half until Prairie Hills Avenue dumps into 60th Street Southwest. I don't know if there's a solution to that at this point, but I know it's going to become a perpetual concern for that residential neighborhood, the amount of traffic and the speed of traffic, as this being the only entrance to a commercial development that has great plans going forward. I thank you for the opportunity to speak my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeBoer. Is there anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the preliminary plan? Conda, would you state your name for the record?
Conda Williams. I have Stony Point. I am concerned. I have brought this to you many times. I think you are aware of my situation, our family. I constantly find that they are not doing their due diligence in preventing some of the problems that are existing on my own property. I am against having a commercial restaurant or resort right behind my own home. These ideas are becoming a nightmare for me. I wish there were other solutions, but I don't see that they are doing the proper things at this time. I also have questions. Earlier today, there were commercial trucks parked up beside my pole barn. I was quite curious as to who was there and what they were doing. Eventually, I found out that they were going to be doing some work up on the other Stony Point in the canal and start digging or excavating that area. I'm hoping that's not going to be used, my easement road is not going to be used one more time for the implementing of their development. I have concerns. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
I was out there with Conda today too, and we were talking about that, and we've talked to Brandy about it too, that and the runoff that goes into her property, about how just to protect it, it's just landscaping fabric laying flat on the ground. That's not going to stop any runoff.
Public hearing is still open. Mr. Lawrence, would you state your name for the record?
Mike Lawrence. I work with Bob Drake, and we work on this project together. We all know there's a history behind this property. We have one thing that I want to point out that Brandy did kind of leave out there is, you know, you guys have blessed the lot itself for a hotel, restaurant, apartments. We had to come for that conditional use. That was a great time to have that conditional use. We talked through it. Now we're just trying to get to the property without using Conda's easement. I was out there this morning with that contractor. I actually made a phone call to him this morning not to do that, and I was surprised. I got there before him, and because they brought 3 trucks, and for some reason they left one there. So I had told him, hey, make sure you don't go into the campground side. this direction. The only reason that we had to go that direction today was because of the 2 inches of rain that we had. It was, it didn't make it very easy to get up from the other direction. So, you know, this process right here, we could have built apartment complexes on here without even having to come do this. We could come in here and do a residential R3 50-unit condo without having to ask this question, because it's not a commercial use, it's a residential use. The only reason that we're here today is because in that 50-unit condo building will be a restaurant. That's the reason that we're here. We have went through 5 renditions. We've done everything that we can. We're not asking for a variance on anything. As far as this, what we're trying to do is get people off of Conda's land, get the drainage onto Mr. Drake's land, and try to I mean, the area is very contentious, and I feel, Mr. DeBoer, we don't want people out there either, and we want to make that clear to the public. This isn't private or public property yet. There isn't a road that you can use. People shouldn't be driving out there and driving around through there. Mr. Drake is working on getting some barricades so we can get that barricaded off so that ends. I mean, we don't want that either. That's a liability on us. So right now, what we're trying to do here is kind of correct the sins of the past that have happened. We're looking to bring forward, we're working with the Watertown Development Company to bring forward a TIF that will get the Marina the Road in as well. We're working with contractors already. Like I said, we've went back and forth with the city staff 5 or 6 times. There's tens of thousands of dollars worth of engineering built into this. And we have been working with the city staff. We're not asking for variances. We're trying to do the best we can in an area that's very contentious. And the sooner I think that we get everything done, the better it'll be. And it just takes time. We're going to be bringing the zoning for the rest of it. We're going to be utilizing the new CL district. We're going to try to bring that, and then the zoning will be taken care of. We're hoping to have this area. We want to get it buttoned up. We've been working with hotel developers. We've been meeting with them as well, contractors, trying to get this thing to the point where, this 7-year process. I know Miss Williams last time had mentioned, I wish they would have just done a residential development back up in there. Well, as you saw, that was our first. I mean, Mr. Drake would be done. This project would be over by now. That was 7 years ago that we tried to do that, and that wasn't good. And now we're coming here, and nobody wants that either. Mr. Drake purchased the land. He wants to do something on it to improve access and habitable properties on the lake to get people out here. And I mean, we're anywhere between $15 and $20 million on a building. I mean, that's going to add taxable value to the city and add residences out there. And a lot of the people that are interested in these condos actually live on the lake. They just want to extend their time on the lake. They don't want to mow lawns anymore, and they don't want to do docks. So that's what we're trying to do. And this is literally how the water flows. That's what this plan is about, how the road's built and how the water flows. And that's why we're sitting here today.
How long do you think it'll be before the road is completed?
It has to do with the contractor. We're not going to go ahead and get the whole road bid. On a normal project you would, but a 7-year long project like this, if you take all that time, we spend all this money on engineering and contractors' times, but we would hope to have that at least at, end of this year, beginning of next to get it in there. But also you have to leave it set for a year to settle.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan and stuff. But right now, when the contractors are going in and out, they will be able to use the new road.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So then the only people that will be using that easement until the road is done would be like the 2 residential homes, correct?
The 2 residential homes, and if there was any, like I said, we had 2 inches of rain right now. If they're working on the first part of that road, we obviously have to use the easement on the back half to get up there until we can get the road in place. But yes, we want out of this road debacle just as much as everyone else does.
What about like with the runoff and stuff? Do you guys have any plans for that?
We do. The contractor would have to submit a SWIP, And so that would be taken care of. If there's issues, let us know. I mean, we're not out there every single day walking around making sure, we had 90-mile-an-hour winds for 4 days. That takes stuff down. I mean, there is issues like that, but we try. I mean, if there's anything wrong with the road, we make sure we try to get contractors up there, even on Conda's easement, to get the road as fast as we can. Obviously, it's not a drop of the hat type deal, but I believe Mr. Drake has really done a fair job of trying to make sure that this is done. I mean, we're buying a whole bunch of property to make sure that nobody uses that easement.
As far as the erosion and sediment control, like Mike had mentioned, so when they submit their construction plans, then the city would review a SWIP. Same with the DENR. They'd issue an NOI, and then the city would manage that they were implementing their BMPs and then maintaining them as well.
Good. I just wanted to have it on record that, we only have one chance really to straighten up what started. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, and maintain the integrity of the beauty of the lake that we have.
Brandy, my eyes rolled back in my head when you started dropping acronyms. Would you please explain those? SWIP.
So a SWIP is a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and then a BMP is best management practices, which are like silt fence and wattles, things of that nature.
Thank you. And I believe there was an NOI.
That is a notice of intent, and that is issued through the South Dakota Department of,
Natural Resources.
And okay.
DENR.
Yeah, we've worked close with DNR, GFMP, the Lake Association. We presented with them in front of them on Tuesday. The first time that Mr. Drake brought the residential channel and lots through, they weren't on board. They didn't have any objections. They're not here with their attorney this time. So things have been a lot better. We've been working closer with staff. We've been trying to do, a good job at that as well.
Mike, and I'm going back on the agreement, like you said, that's been following this land. Number 8 on page 3 of 6, it's under number 7, park dedication. It was annexed prior to 1970, so no park dedication was required. And I know I'm way off track of where we are right now, but I just was peeling through and noticed it. If you're going to thinking of residential and apartments up there, are you considering any type of green?
There will be green space. There will be an outdoor pool. We're hoping to have a fitness center. I mean, and those are some items like that. We're planning on building a marina with a boardwalk. We plan on connecting it hopefully to the trail system. We want it to be a place that people can get out and enjoy Lake Kempesca.
And Rhonda, I might add too, that is not typical language. That when they platted that should have still, like the residential lots, and we're not contemplating those with what we're looking at with the prelim plan. But if they were to come back and rezone, and he did mention that they're thinking CL, but the marina and everything will bring a recreational aspect to the property too. And then like he mentioned with just the condos themselves having a pool and a yard and whatnot. But that is definitely something that if they were coming back and going to rezone residential, we would take that to the park board and they would approve, and we'd get the 5% that we typically do.
We have a whole bunch of wetlands we could give you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Case.
it seems to me that 6 years ago or whatever it was, the property in question was platted and it's got a commercial zone. And so to me, that's old potatoes. It's behind us. It really has nothing germane to what we're discussing tonight. The only thing that we're looking at here is whether or not this is the adequate place to have a road to access that property, which should have been done when the original plat was done. So we're fixing it after the fact. And I'm guessing, because my recollection was there was consternation regarding how that property was going to have access. And so the developers brought us a road. They're meeting the environmental aspects of it. The question is this the adequate right place for the road? And that should really be the basis and focus of our discussion. The other things and the other future uses, will be preliminary planned at a later date, is what I'm understanding Brandy to say. Is that correct?
Correct. Spot on.
So I would just like to focus on the discussion that's before us today is this layout where the road is the appropriate place to have it?
Thank you, Commissioner Kays, and I would echo that. To that end, Mr. DeBoer's concerns, that's the first time I've heard that, and I think that does deal directly with that. What are we gonna do for Mr. DeBoer?
And that's something I'm on a development committee that we're trying to change this process. Because right now bringing a prelim plan after you have tens of thousands of dollars of engineering into here and then finding this out and not bringing a concept plan in here, it raises some issues with a developer. So we are working on maybe bringing some things forward that we can get that, changed. As far as
Sure, we could always do better with the process,
Yep.
but I could imagine some real easy and creative solutions that would make Mr. DeBoer's life a hell of a lot easier. Pardon my French.
Yep, no problem.
Well, and so I might add too. So if you guys would approve this preliminary plan, I was checking to see, revisions to a preliminary plan and when that has to come back. Obviously, like what Mike was getting at is we've gotten to this point, and then to have that addressed, it's a little late, but it's not something that couldn't come back easily revised. And I think that just recently some things might have changed where they're working with the adjacent landowner on potentially being able to utilize property and maybe change their pond layout or whatnot, where they might be able to curve the road where it wouldn't swing so much into
Mr.
Mr.
DeBoer's.
DeBoer's property.
What we could ask for is some flexibility in just that portion of this plan where we could, straighten that out. The problem is we want to get started. We want to get moving. We have contractors waiting. We have architects working, and, we want to cut everyone loose so we can get this thing done. So if we could have some flexibility, we will work on trying to get the road to not swing in there. We have to, like I said, we're bringing more things up here in the future. We want Mr. DeBoer to be comfortable. We want to try to work with the people because it's a large project, and it's a lot easier if you work with the people than if you don't. So if there's any way we can improve it with the flexibility based on that, and/or we'd be willing to plant trees, do some screening, berms. I mean, we have a lot of dirt. If you would like a big berm, we could find a real.
Well, I can imagine a couple of relatively inexpensive tree planting, maybe a privacy fence or something. I understand that the time for conditions is passed.
Yep.
On the northern piece of property.
Yeah, we would do that in good faith, though.
Appreciate that.
The one
I guess my only thinking would be is that you're coming into an S curve there, and I'm not an engineer, so I think definitely depending on the speed loadings and what you got going there, whether or not I understand the way it's laid out right now, it's a little bit wonky looking, but if you were to come in where you don't have a sharp S curve coming into that, and if this is a 35 or 40 mile an hour speed limit, that could be problematic. I'm comfortable. And if we get to the point where there's a motion made that we have some flexibility to work with staff on what, how that road bends, as long as we know where it's starting and where it's ending.
And we don't want, we would, what Brandy has up there is, I mean, it's great that she put that up there, but we would not be building a road with 2 S curves in it. We would, because there is some other plans to the west there that we'd need that road to look that way. It would probably go straight and then turn. Yeah, it would be a T.
But we could look at it where, however they did present it, that it would meet our engineering design standards.
Correct.
What I was going to say is it wouldn't necessarily have to be like a crazy S curve. It would have to have a 150-foot radius or 150-degree radius. So,
Right.
Yeah, we're hoping that the speed limit isn't 35 up there, so we're good with 25.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Lawrence?
I do. This is Diana Ford. I'd like to ask Mr. DeBoer, who I think is sitting right behind Mike, if he feels comfortable with this conversation as far as meeting the needs that he had brought before the board.
Thanks for the question. I'm just looking for the road to be straightened so that it doesn't swing behind my property and I don't get all those headlights in my bedroom and my living room. And anything we can do in addition with berms and foliage is great as well, because as this develops, there's going to be a lot of stuff up there that I may not want to see every day. So whatever we can do, I think straightening it out is an ideal solution with some berms and some trees. Thank you.
One thing to note about and if they would straighten it out, they would have some space there to be able to berm it up. He sits really high too, so a berm might be necessary to actually get some height. But otherwise, right now, how the road is, it's very close. It's like 4 foot off the wetland. So then they'd have to, if they were going to fill that, they'd have to work with the Corps because it's jurisdictional, but they probably would want to avoid that. Not that it's not doable.
All right. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the preliminary plan that is before us?
Brandy, could I ask you a question real quick? What kind of comes up? I know in the past there was a lot of discussion about curb and gutter, especially as it pertains to controlling the runoff in the water. I see on the design that they have curb and gutter just on the first 450 feet on the west side of the road. Is that fall within your design standards?
Yes, so we do have the allowance to have urban rural sections. It has to, this type of development, it's appropriate as long as they're not needing on-street parking, which they don't, because right now it's basically, it's a road up to the development. So then once they get up there, they are going to put curb and gutter so they have the on-street parking. Otherwise, it'll be 28 feet paved and then 4 foot shoulders, I believe. That's also per our design standards and AASHTO.
So they'd come back and put in curb and gutter later, just the first 450 feet is all they're putting it on now?
Right. The other, the street itself, let me pull up the actual plan here. So you'll see all these sections here of the street, how they'll have the ditch sections, and no curb and gutter. And then up here is where, actually I'll show you this one. There's their curb and gutter section, so that is from this point.
It's
10.
down at the entrance, it's on
10 to 4.
station 10
Oh,
to 14.
sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, is it's just curb and gutter from Prairie Hills Avenue north 451 feet on just the west side of the road. And I guess my question to the board and to the staff is this a road that we would like to have curb and gutter to help protect the water runoff as it is so close to wetlands in the lake?
Public hearing is still open. I saw Eric, do you want to talk first briefly? We'll get through everyone first, and then if there's any other comments, we'll brief period for rebuttal comments.
Sure. Eric Scott, just up here to speak generally in support of the development, especially if they can address Mr. DeBoer's concerns. But from what I've been following, I haven't been following close, but our community really wants to see Lake Kampesca developed. Kampesca is a Watertown jewel, as is our downtown. But Watertown has so many great things, and this is one of them. And there are no perfect solutions. There's going to be problems. I commend these guys for being patient, being creative, and trying to address everybody's concerns. Unfortunately, in development and with progress, you can't, and change, you can't address every single concern, and not everybody's going to be happy. But Lake Kampesca is a Watertown resource, and this could be great economic development for our community, which we need, that which would help in not just on the lake, to help clean the lake up, some of those tax dollars, some of those things, but with also other projects that we want in town. It would probably also bring some summer visitors or people that would come into our community from out of town on the weekends and spend their tax dollars instead of coming from coming from Watertown to Sioux Falls, they might drop some tax dollars in Watertown for us to spend on our projects for our city. So generally in support of this project, and I know we want to see Campesca developed. There's not a lot of opportunities to do it. There's not a lot of places to do it. And as far as I know, there's only one developer looking to invest big dollars in it. So generally just in support of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet that would like to speak? Is there anybody out in the interwebs? I see Mr. Drake is coming up to the podium. Please state your name for the record, Mr. Drake.
Yeah, Bob Drake. Just wanted to point out a couple of things. I mean, we've been having a lot of traffic up there, so we did put a rope gate across, and we put signage on that end. We've had the signage on the other end to stay out, and because that wasn't a road, we, had that so I'll make that more permanent as we go, but right now we have a rope across it, and it says do not enter private property and all that kind of stuff. The wetland side of things, we're pretty careful to make sure we protected that wetland in what we've put down. We've seeded it to grass, and we've done that on the other side of the road so that we can handle the runoff that would occur there. When the road comes in, that'll be designed to actually go to the pond, so from a drainage standpoint, to further protect it. Is there any other questions here? There were some complaints about the dust and whatever. Of course, the rain took care of it, but the guy that's been hauling the sand said he would be spraying it down on Monday. So it'll be covered on that end. So anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Drake from the board?
Do you have one about the curb on both sides, curb and gutter on both sides?
Is it just the plan to have the curb and gutter just at the beginning off of Prairie Hills Avenue, or is there more?
The plan is to have the curb and gutter on the entrance on Stony Point, from what is it called down there? Prairie Hills Drive or Avenue or whatever. The plan is just to have it there because that'll divert the water. That's all fairly flat in there. That'll divert the water in there as we come along. The rest of it is more by road design, so that you'll drain it to the pond. So actually, there'll be less water going into the wetland and less issues with that than there was, post-development versus pre-development. So.
Yep.
And as the development grows and stuff, as it goes north, like to where you're going to have the new building and stuff, what about the curb and gutter there?
I mean, we're talking about what we're doing up on top, and it's really not part of this. But when we get to the redesign of everything else, we'll probably be addressing that at that point. So right now, just the road just comes up, and we'll run a cul-de-sac and return. So.
And then for parking, I had mentioned the on-street parking. They will have off-street parking requirements to meet. So that's where the parking will take place.
And that is the plan currently, is off-street. So.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet to speak on behalf of or against the preliminary plan? Or neutral comments for that matter? Anybody out in the internet?
I just want to clarify in case I misspoke about the rural street sections. We reference it. It needs to be in accordance to or approved by the city engineer. We don't have specific standards for it. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks, Brandy. Okay, hearing that nobody else new wants to speak, is there anybody that's already spoken that would like to clarify or briefly comment? I would ask that you limit your comments to what has been discussed and what motion is before us. You come on up, Conda.
Conda Williams. I still have concerns about the runoff, and especially if there's a road that's going to be in there. That pavement, there's going to be a lot of water coming down, rolling down that road. I don't believe that anything has been addressed as far as putting up barriers and stuff to protect my property at this time or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Conda.
Yes, and to when they would pull a permit to construct, we would definitely, and we'll pay extra attention to that, make sure it's reinforced, and definitely protect the runoff, as this is the hill and it would go downhill. So we'll make sure to be aware of that and protect it.
Anybody else that wants to speak their piece? Now's the chance. Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing and open it up for board discussion. Comments, questions, concerns by the board?
Brandy, has the utilities, fire department, snow removal, that everything is adequate for what
Yep.
they need there?
And I think Chip's on the meeting, but they were all part of the design review team. And we're all okay with it. As far as the commercial building will be sprinklered, so the one access is fine. And as far as utilities, they will be fine. They have existing utilities over here where when development progresses, or when they put this marina in, they'll have to address relocating that. And the developers have been given warning of that, just so they can plan for it. And that was important to utilities. But that will be for a future phase too, to address that.
Any other discussion from the board? I would look for a motion on resolution number 2020-2017. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve, subject to providing the applicant and staff a little bit of an opportunity to address how that road design comes in to have the least amount of impact on Mr. DeBoer's property. I don't know how to guarantee that, but I think the point is that those two lots need a road. Generally, where the road ends at that property is fine, and probably where it comes onto the road, the access road to the south is probably okay. It just seems to be whether or not the curve or where those lights are going to be coming in. If there are some things that can be done, and I would be willing to direct staff to have that flexibility in working with the applicant, and if they can't come to some sort of resolution, then bring that back before the board.
I want to clarify resolution 2020-27.
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't think
All right.
anyone else.
So we have a
got that,
motion by Kays. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Hanson. Do we have any further discussion?
Just wanted to note too, if the street configuration changes slightly, like what I'm showing there, similar to that, the detention pond might shift a little bit too. Is that something you entrust staff to assure is meeting our requirements?
I'll give it to the engineers to figure out.
Motion second. Is there any other further discussion from the board? Mr. Brink?
My thought is if we would approve it with the intent that it goes back and gets changed and fixed, I mean, I don't know if we'll know exactly what it is we're approving. You know, we don't know how much that road can be straightened out, especially with its proximity to that pond and other grading issues.
So are you suggesting an alternative motion or what?
I get worried that, you know, we have a motion such as, you know, that they'll.
Well, let me defend my position. My
Yep,
position is that the planning commission, that we are charged with laying out a general location of roads, utilities, development. When it gets into the nuts and bolts of specific things, and that's, I think, is somewhat out of our ball of wax to be playing with. And I think if we have, now we have design standards within the city now, that we could be handing that off to staff to take care of the minutia, and where I would just as well be comfortable giving the general plan. Now, my caveat is that we're entrusting staff to do the right thing and try to take into consideration Mr. DeBoer's issues and concerns. But I think there's going to be other bites at the apple when that comes in with future preliminary plans, that if we can't figure it out today, that can be figured out again more at that larger conceptual viewpoint. That's my opinion.
When the next phase comes in, the street will most likely be in, so I see the concern. But if staff uses their best judgment, if it's something that they really, if there's question about it, we could bring it back to the board. We have, you know.
Thank you for that discussion. Do we have any further discussion? Frank, did you want to make a substitute or an amended motion, or are you happy with the motion?
I don't know if I have a substitute motion that I could make. I worry about approving it, not knowing where it'll be when the concern is where will the road be. I mean, I understand Commissioner Kays and that, you know, that it should be looked at through the eyes of the engineering staff. I mean, they do know a lot more about that, but at the same time, it's hard to just kind of leave an open checkbook in my mind, I guess.
Your concerns are noted, and I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean, but it's a challenge. It's just like many things. It's difficult to get into the real minutia at this particular level on this particular board, and so sometimes we're forced to work within the tools that we have. So there is a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, I would ask for a roll call vote. Randy?
Brink.
No.
Oletsky.
This is a tough one. I just, you know, I really understand what you're going at and stuff. I don't know. I'm going to trust the city. I'll go yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Kays.
Yes.
Dargits Johnson.
I'm going to piggyback Bonnie, but yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. The next agenda item is, I've got to make sure I'm looking at the right agenda here. The next agenda item is 7, public comment. Again, what everybody was waiting for. Is there anyone in the room or on the internet that wants to speak about anything that wasn't on the agenda? Okay. Number 8, new business, Brandy.
None.
Fantastic. Number 9, old business, Brandy.
None.
Super.
Welcome.
Number 10, do we have any need for executive session?
Nope.
Even better. 11, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion by Dargits Johnson, second by Brink. Roll call vote. Randy?
Brink.
Yes.
Oletsky.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Kays.
Yep.
Dargits Johnson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.